So I have a basic ROM hack right here with a little basic level to show off some of these issues. Ignore the flowers that aren't showing up right now. Um, but yeah, here are the flowers and there's some water. Ignore those. Those were because I didn't feel like um, deleting them. This is a level from a different hack. But you see, if I jump off the level, I can't. I just get stuck. And you might also if you jump off, you immediately die, even if you didn't touch the bottom of the level. I'll talk about both of those. So here I have three slopes. I want this first one to be slippery, like so. I want the second one to not be slippery, so I can walk up it without having to kick or anything. And then this third one, I want to be slippery, despite the fact that it's not like slippery look. And I'm just gonna pretend that, like, let's just say this is made out of ice. So this wall right here, I can't wall jump off. It just kind of like does that, and then has like this kind of thing. You can't BLJ in it, unfortunately. Then this lava over here, not functional. It's just a plane, and I want wind right here. So all of these are caused by collision not working. Wait, another thing is that this flower over here. So I just want like a little flower. I forgot to import the version that I moved the flower down. We'll fix that also, but that's unrelated. And then another thing is, if you look underneath the flower, okay, I guess I fixed it, but you might also not be able to see the other side. All of these we're gonna fix. So if we open the model up in Blender, first off, walls being weird, that's because they're not straight. So if I press S, X scaled on the X-axis, and then 0, well, I guess this version I already fixed it. But like it was like this in the hack, so we need to scale it on the x-axis to be 0. And if your wall was like orientated this way, then SX0, then that might not be optimal, but I don't know, you can rotate it a different way. I'm too lazy to figure out what's the best solution. And so flower, this version, I already have the flower moved down. So now you want to create a new scene to work on the collision map. So click on this and then copy settings. Don't do full copy because that'll copy the objects and then it'll be like the same object. So if I change something here, it'll change on the visual map. So I'm going to rename this one collision. That is not how you spell collision. So I've never made it another game before, but at least with Mario 64, how collision works is that this texture, every face that has the grass texture is going to be this collision type. Everything with the dirt texture is going to be this collision type. So I can make the dirt texture be slippery and the whatever. So that's how Mario 64 works. And so the collision map also is a different thing to the visual map. So if you want something to have no collision, for example, these flowers. So if you think about in real life, flowers do not stop you. If you walk into them, they don't stop you from moving. So, since they affect you in no way when you're walking around on them, we just delete them from the collision map. And really, the only thing that matters, for this wall, for example, the messed up corners, you would technically only have to change it on the collision map, but then the collision doesn't match up with the visual map, so it's best to change it on both. And you might also notice I forgot to mention, but you might notice you can't ledge grab a ledge, and you need to make sure that it is precisely a 90-degree corner. So you can do this by SX0. Actually, in this case, I want to do SY0 and then SZ0 to make sure it is precisely 90 degrees. And that'll fix that issue. So we need to get the collision types. So I'm going to assign everything to be grass. And what you can do is put in a new material and set it to nothing but ROM Manager. I don't know about Decomp. I don't use Decomp. But ROM Manager, when I use, it doesn't really like meshes having no texture. So it'll like some like I don't. It was weird when I tested out. Like part over here was this texture, and then over here was this texture. It was kind of weird. So have a texture that is just like default ground, which I'm gonna make it grass, and then so this right here. I was trying to think. So Mario 64 will automatically detect and calculate what amount of slipperiness a slope should be. So it'll, like, this is pretty, like, a realistic amount of slipperiness. So most of the time, if you want a slope to be slippery or slide, most of the time you can just leave it up to Mario 64 to do that for you. And this in-game was working how I wanted it to, and so I'm just going to leave this one alone. But this one, I said I wanted to be able to walk up it, and so everything I want to be able to walk up is going to be assigned the dirt texture, and I have Notepad over here to remember. And then this third slope, I wanted it, despite the fact that realistically you shouldn't slide on this amount of slope, I want it to, I want you to be able to slide still, so I'm going to assign it to this other grass texture. Then over here, lava, I'm going to assign it to lava. And then, so here we have wind, and so the wind is also a collision type. So wherever we want the wind to be, if it was an upward wind, then we would just create a plane down here. I can't speak. But if it's like horizontal wind, then you want to make it a collision type like this. So a lot of other things are collision types. You want Mario 64. You want Mario to go through something when you vanish cap through it. That's a collision type. You want a climbable ceiling. That's a collision type. So a lot of that stuff is just collision types. So another thing to fix is when you jumped off the stage, you hit an invisible wall. How to fix this? Well, first, don't add this to every level. For example, stages like Bob and Battlefield don't have this, because if you can't realistically like fall off the stage at any place, then you don't need this. Wet Dry World is another example. They don't have this, so don't add it if it's an enclosed level, but if it's a level like Mom's Fortress where you can fall off, then do add this. So what you're gonna add is Shift A, add in a plane. So move it down. It needs to be exactly 1024 in-game units below the lowest part of the level, which lowest part is here. And while we can't measure Mario 64 units inside a Blender, we can just eyeball it. Like, this is good. And if it doesn't work, then we can just go back in and move this plane down. Not too big of a deal. And also, so this wind is horizontal wind. There's no, like, it'll move on the x-axis. Not, it'll blow the wind on the y-axis, and I want it to blow you off, not back. And so, as far as I know, the only way to fix this is by rotating the entire stage. Or X90. But I'm not gonna do that. It's not that big of a deal, in my opinion, for this. Whatever. So, I believe that should be all the issues. So, some more issues you can come across. This is just a general rule if I want to do this on the visual map also, but go to overlays and face orientation if you're in Blender 2.8 plus, and make sure you see nothing but blue. You don't want to see any red, because that means that the normals are flipped and that can cause collision, also visual issues. But some stuff like the flower from earlier, if we head into the visual map, you can see blue on top, but you kind of move your camera down, you can see red. So in game, where there's red, you would just see through it. And so this flower, you would want to be able to see through it, but the main level, you normally can't get on the inside, so we don't need to render the inside of it. So we can change it to where this flower, you can see the inside of it, but the level you can't. But collision, you never want to have a plane in the collision unless you are only able to get to one side of it. For example, the gate in Bob and Battlefield, not the gate, but the chain chomp thing. It's one-sided, and on the collision map, it's just a texture. But that's fine because without using glitches, you're only able to touch one side of the fence, okay? Because when you get behind the gate, it's already destroyed. So that case, it's fine to have a plane, and in that case, you also want to make sure that face orientation is right. But in other situations, like for example the fences in game, on the collision map, they're just squares with really rounded off tops like it's a house. And if you're in Blender pre 2.8, then the way to check, in my opinion, the easiest way to check is by going into textured view and then add in a single, that's a camera, add in a single point. and then check to make sure it's a real it's a realistic amount. So realistic, I don't know how to explain. I'm bad at explaining. So you can see when I shine the light right here, this face gets lit up, this face gets lit up, and then when I move it up here, this face gets lit up, but when I move it inside of the cube, nothing gets lit up. And that's how it should be. But if you notice that there's no light anywhere, but then you put it inside the mesh, all of a sudden there's light. I can't remember. Yeah, Control F and flip normals. So that's what you want to do. So in this, it's like this. Where the point is. This is an example of like what would be bad. This face is being lit up, and so most of the time, I just searched flip. Is that not the? Oh, it's not the first result. But most of the time, um, everything will be messed up, or like all of one object, all of one area will be messed up. But it's very rare for just like one or two faces to be flipped in the wrong way. So you can just flip everything and then check. There is a thing where you can see like a tiny little itty bitty outline showing you which way the normals are looking, but it's kind of hard, especially in a whole level, to see and understand what all it is. 2.8 made it a lot easier with the face orientation thing. Or I guess you could also I think it's in here. I don't remember where it's at, but you can turn back face culling off. For some reason it calls it back face culling, and you have to turning it off is actually turning it on. It's kind of weird, but in my opinion, face orientation is the best way to go about it. So now you need to export it separately as a collision map, and then go to import collision, and then collision tutorial collision. So I'm also going to import the visual map, so graphics editor for the flower. As I said, you want to see both sides of the flower, so enable two-sided faces, whereas grass, you don't go on the inside of the level to see it, so enable two-sided faces. And even if you did, you would want to make it a cube, because two-sided faces, for something like a single face, has like no change on performance, so don't worry about it. But if you do it on the grass or dirt in a full scale level, it can really affect performance. So try to use it in Mario 64. Again, I don't know about other game engines, I don't make games, but in Mario 64 you want to use two-sided faces as little as possible. Like, if you have a bunch of flowers, maybe consider doing a flower bed, you know. So to do all the other stuff, head into Collision Editor. So if we pull up Notepad from earlier, the second slope is the dirt texture. We want it to be non-slippery. So there's just non-slippery default. This makes it where I can walk up it. There's no sliding. And then flower, I wanted this to be horizontal wind. So if I just search wind, horizontal wind. Lava, I wanted this one to be lava, so search for lava. And then in case you aren't aware, water is not a collision type. Unfortunately, I kind of wish it was. That would be really cool. Maybe someone can make something that changes that. I doubt it'll happen though, but lava is a collision type. You can make whatever shaped objects you want to be lava, but you cannot for water. And then the second grass, I wanted this to be slide all the time, so slide default is what I'm looking for. There's also a slippery default, which means that you'll slide down it, but you don't always like just touch it, slide. It like if you walk up it, you'll just like kind of walk up it slowly. It kind of just like increases the amount of slipperiness instead of like just a little bit instead of like almost all the way like slide default will. So in this case, I wanted you to slide down it like it's ice or something, so slide default's what I want. So then convert model, save it. Okay, thank God, ROM Manager didn't crash this time. So, oh yeah, go into area editor, and then view collision type. So we added the death plane as what that was called. We need to make sure that it is exactly 1024 units below or more. So I'm going to add in a new object. It's going to be empty. So take the z coordinate of it, which is 0, move it down, drop to bottom, move down here. You can see it's at approximately, I'm used to Blender, whatever, negative 6,300, and up here it was 0. So we kind of overkilled it. But now I want to find where, when I fall, where do I want Mario to start dying? So about here is a good amount. We also want it to be 1024 units or more below, because if the plane is lower but then the death floor is like not 20, if I put the death floor like right here, it is technically lower, but it's only 600 units below. So as soon as I get off collision, you'll die instantly, which is kind of annoying. I don't know why it's made like that. But take the Y from this and then go into collision, add death floor with extended boundaries, set the Y level to be what this is, press OK, and then I'll add a new death floor thing. Yeah, so now if we playtest the ROM, everything should be working. Oh, whoops, I opened it in ROM Manager, not Project. I do that. Okay. So, if we check over here, this is still slippery as I want it to be, but this one, if we walk up it, there's no difficulty. We can walk up it all we want. I mean, it's a little wonky, but so was the original game when it did that kind of thing, so nothing exclusive to your hack. We check this, I am sliding down it. It's not as slippery as I want it to be. As I meant, it kind of like slippery defaults adds like a, 20-degree rotation. It imagines that the face is as slippery as like a maybe 20-degree more slope is, and then slide default's like a 50 or 60 or something. So they don't necessarily make them slippery or slidey. They just add more and even more slipperiness. But it is a whatever good enough result. So if I check the wall over here, I can bonk on it first of all. I can now wall jump off of it, which is great, so that's fixed. If I touch the lava, I start getting burned. Over here, there's the flower. I guess the visual map didn't import correctly, but I can no longer touch it, which is how a flower should act. If I head over here, the wind is pushing me, and if I jump off, exactly as I wanted it to be. So now the collision is fixed and it's perfectly working. So this video was 17 minutes long, but just remember collision types, use them, when to use them, how to use them, and there's a couple of rules you want to follow, like never have planes in the collision map unless you can only get to one side, and then there's the backface thing. Try to make your death floor 1,000 units below. Also, I don't know how I forgot to mention, I guess I got sidetracked in the collision map. But Mario always needs to be above collision, or else he dies instantly. And I'm not talking about just like, oh no, he dies. Like you want this to be about like on the level boundaries and a little bit extra, just so if you fall off, you don't bonk on the void. Because I mentioned this in a main channel video, but you can bonk on the void in some stages like Rainbow Ride or Bowser. And so because of that, I like to scale it up about like here, maybe like this. If you scale it up just like a bit more, it's not going to cause any serious performance issues. I mean, if you were to scale it up to like this, it might cause issues. If not, like it might even not import. I've never tried it. But this should be perfectly fine, and it's a little bit better. So make sure that it covers every single place where you can fall off the level and more. Make sure it's at least 1,000 or 1,024 units below the stage. And yeah, so that should fix everything. I'm gonna pause the recording to make sure, also I can think for a minute and make sure that they covered everything. Okay, so something I've always done as good practice is to make the UVs of all the objects in the collision map small, because I was like, I don't really know if it's like scaling it up to an insanely high amount would cause any performance issues or not. And so I've always just scaled it down just to be safe, and because when you look at it, it's just a bunch of different colors now, which makes it a little nicer to look at. And so I decided to test the theory of when it's gigantic, does it have any performance issues? And if I import the collision, it's fine, but then if I control S to save, ROM Manager keeps crashing. And I've noticed that importing levels in the most recent version of ROM Manager crashes a lot. So much, it's annoying. And so I've tried this like 7 times and it just keeps crashing. So I think that it's just like a thing, it just crashes. I don't know. But it only crashes when I save. So if I go into level manager, area model, import collision, collision convert model, area editor, and then I view the collision map, you can see it doesn't view the for all raw manager shows you there's no materials on anything, so it doesn't matter that it does that. So if I press Control S, it crashes. And here is the crash log, which for some reason isn't just like a normal text format. I don't really know why. I don't really know why the crash log looks like this. I don't know what this is, so I can't really check the log, which seems kind of stupid to me. So I don't know if it's just raw manager keeps continuously crashing, or if the crash is actually caused by the model. But I'm going to assume that it just keeps crashing because of the high UV amounts. But anyways, just in case, don't make the UVs gigantic. And I believe that should be everything related to collision, how to fix it, how to do it, all of that. So hopefully this helped, and if it did, then you're welcome.